Okay, you getting the message today? Behold, the kingdom of God is within you, not just a place to get into, something that you can tap into because it's something that we are, yes? Yes. So we're all learning a new paradigm for this idea of heaven and the kingdom of God. You know, there was a time when I would hear the kingdom of God is within you, and I'd be like, oh, please don't bring me back to Catholicism. Please don't take me back to Christianity. I would hear phrases and it would sound too much like what I grew up with, and I would instantly turn it off. Anybody else? I know. There are many of you, right? But I don't do that anymore. Because I realize now, somebody asked me when New Thought began when I was in Alaska. They said, when did New Thought begin? And somebody said, I think it was the 1850s. And I said, no, actually, it began with Jesus. Everybody was like, what? That's like heresy. What? I said, no, New Thought began with Jesus. That's the whole point. He came along and said, I'm not here to destroy the God of Abraham. I'm here to make it a little clearer for y'all. He was Southern. And he basically said, this is how it works. The kingdom of God is within you. You and the Father, I and the Father are one. It is done unto you as you believe. The very tenets that we teach in Science of Mind, which is this radically crazy religion. And yet it's not. It's just New Thought, which means we're trying to get a better perspective of how and what Jesus meant in the first place. So, behold. Now, since I left you 2 weeks ago, I have a list here of all the things I did on my summer vacation. It does not include men in underwear. It does not include anything leather or anything. For those of you that think I'm coming back to talk about my gay cruise, I am not. I barely noticed it. I played with otters. I know, really. I saw a dozen sperm whales breasting all around me. It was unbelievable. I was a foot away from an eagle. And Kevin actually had his picture taken with the eagle on his shoulder. I was starting to think of who I would date when he was done. But I did take the picture. I drifted through a sea of glaciers and these little pieces of blue ice just all around me until we didn't hit one, until there was this huge glacier in front of us. It was just magnificent. I watched thousands of salmon trying to swim upstream, like jumping over one another, and I will never eat salmon again. And I watched a bear looking for salmon. I was out on a bear watch, and all of a sudden the bear showed up, and I had my camera on, and it was like probably to the back row. And I'm thinking, how fast can a bear run? A. B, I want to get this, so I'm going to just pick it. And all of a sudden the bear turned and started walking towards us across this lake, and I turned to the guide and I went, at which point do we go? But I took a picture of this gorgeous bear, and he didn't care. He just did what he did, and he walked along and saw us, kind of looked, and then just kept going, looking for salmon. Really awesome. I stood under a starry night in the desert. I watched a giraffe eat from a tree, a father giraffe and a baby giraffe, and I watched people feed them. And then Sharon Earl and I walked around the corner, and as we walked around the corner, and I'll put this picture on Facebook, the baby giraffe stuck its head around a rock right where we were, and I'm like, and there came its head, like maybe about this far away, and there was this little branch between us, and I stood here, and he stood far away, but his head got to here, and his long tongue came out, and I thought, surely he's not going to lick me. And the little tongue came out and started eating leaves from the tree, and I was just like agog. Sharon and I were like, unbelievable. It was so beautiful. I watched my son taxidermy 2 rabbit feet. He found a dead rabbit carcass in the desert, thought it was appropriate to take its feet. He brought it home. I told him to keep it outside the room. He then went online. I'm not kidding. Could I make this up? No. He went online, found out that if he put the rabbit feet in alcohol for 48 hours, that would disinfect them. And then if he put them in 48 hours of salt, they would be ready to give as gifts. I have a feeling my family may be watching from the desert right now, so yes, Will, I told you I was going to tell them this. So that was that. I spent a day at a water park with 1,000 children. I hiked the San Jacinto Mountains, if that's how you pronounced it. I married 7 couples at sea. And I went zip-lining through the rainforests of Alaska. And through it all, I was thinking, behold, what I was seeing and what was all around me. But I was thinking, love only, forgive everything, and remember who you are, with a special emphasis on remember who you are. Because I was the bear, and I was the salmon, and I was the giraffe, and I was the otter, and I was the whale. I was not the rabbit's foot. Very clear. Behold, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God is at hand, and especially, I got to tell you, in Alaska. But even as I came face to face with bears and eagles and otters and whales and giraffes and rabbits, what I really came face to face with and what I'm here to talk to you about today, and it's no surprise that Jonathan already tapped into it and already spoke about it, I'm here to talk to you today about fear. Now, I don't talk about fear all that much because I don't experience much fear in my life. I don't allow myself to experience much fear in my life. I consider myself fearless. How many of you consider yourselves fearless? Right? I do. I consider myself fearless. Mahatma Gandhi said, fearlessness is the first requisite of spirituality. Isn't that fascinating? Fearlessness is the first requisite of spirituality. So let me talk to spirituality first. Science of Mind teaches practical spirituality. I have to tell you, what that means to me is that if what I am learning and knowing is not applicable in my life to make my life better, to fill out my life in an exquisite manner, then the spirituality isn't worth anything. That's what I think about spirituality. Unless it's practical spirituality that I can live, it's just a nice book to read, and when you're done, you don't remember what you read. So Science of Mind is practical spirituality. Well, you're all here today because what I expect is that you're going to leave here and something that you hear is going to be activated in you and you're going to be able to live that. And it's going to show up somewhere and you're going to go, oh, I could have had a V8. So, practical spirituality. So I'd like to give you an example of how this teaching helped me in Alaska. I'd like to tell you today about me coming face to face with fear and what happened. So I first want to say that zip lining is the new snorkeling. Those of you who are sitting here, I know you're probably like, what? I went snorkeling on my last cruise and had an epiphany after a nervous breakdown. But I didn't have a nervous breakdown zip lining, I want to be very clear. Not completely. So, if fearlessness is the first requisite to spirituality, then the appearance of fear, and this is important, the appearance of fear in your life, in your body, in your mind, the appearance of fear is going to be what gives you the opportunity to find God in those moments of fear. And there's this great quote, which I'll get to, by Mark Twain. Fear, as we all know, means false evidence appearing real. Fear, false evidence appearing real. In this case, the false evidence was the possibility of me plummeting to my death in the rainforests of Alaska. And I did have fear about that. I really did. And yes, it appeared very real. That false evidence appeared very real to me, especially from my vantage point, which I want to give to you in technical terms, was way high. Okay? So, the quote by Mark Twain is this: courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, but not the absence of fear. So, here's my story. When we got to Alaska, Kevin decided he wanted us to go ziplining. I said no. He said yes. I said no. This was Sunday. Ziplining was Thursday. This went on all week, to the point where it was really getting exhausting. It was like, I've already purchased us 2 ziplining. I'm like, great, then go twice. I said, look, I need to know my limits. And he said, I thought you were unlimited. Don't you just hate it when they give you back what you've been teaching? And he said, I think you're going to really resent it if you don't go. I said, I'm going to really resent you if you keep asking me to go. And he kept saying, but then I thought to myself, wait a minute. I believe that God is speaking no matter who's talking. And if God keeps repeating itself over and over and over again, clearly God has something to say to me about ziplining. So the night before ziplining was to happen, we were at dinner, and this couple said to us, we're going ziplining too tomorrow with you. I said, I'm not going ziplining. And the guy said, oh, go. I'm really afraid too. I said, I'm not afraid. I am not afraid of ziplining. I know my limits. That's not fear. That is being really responsible. I said, I have this anxiety feeling about ziplining because I don't like to be tied up. I don't like to be constricted in any manner. Snorkeling, right? I don't want it. So I don't want to be constricted. And I understood ziplining was tie me up and whiz me across a forest. I can't get out even if I want to. And if I wanted to get out, if I had an anxiety attack and decided to get out, done. So, and my son had told me that when he ziplined in Alaska, he got stuck halfway through. Not a big endorsement for ziplining for me. And he's like, no, Dad, no, don't do it. Really don't do it. I went across, I tried to stop it, my fingers ripped, and then I got stuck and they had to climb out and get me. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. What a great idea. Now, what I didn't know was he stopped because he stopped himself and because he's so light. But nevertheless. So I wasn't going ziplining. But then this kid said to me, he said, well, if you're not afraid, he said, why don't you just go, come with us, and then, what we'll do is, if you decide not to go, I may decide not to go, he said, because I'm really afraid of it too. He said, and then we'll just both not go. This was okay with me. So I said to Kevin, I'll tell you what, I'll go ziplining with you. But at any time I decide to stop, you cannot ask me why, and you cannot try to guilt me into continue going as if you could. So we go ziplining. We get up there, and I'm actually okay. I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe this isn't as bad as I thought. We get to the first hurdle, which is putting you into the vests. And the guy comes over, and he starts putting me into my vest. I hear the first click, and I'm like, I'm okay. Oh, okay. And he starts clicking everywhere else, and finally he steps back and he goes, are you okay? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I'm going to have to wait and see how I feel after you get all this stuff clicked on me. So he got it all clicked, and then he put the helmet on and clicked, and I'm like this. I'm like that kid in the Christmas Story. So, but I'm okay. I'm thinking, you know what? I can sort of move. And I said, could you tell me how to get out of this if I need to? And really quickly, he went, no. He said, you can't get out of that. He said, you should. I said, but what if I needed to get out of it, like in an emergency? He said, any emergency that you would need to get out of that, you couldn't get out of that because you shouldn't get out of that if there's an emergency. And I go, right. So I was okay. So we climb up this hill, and we're at the first perch. How many of you have ever gone ziplining? Okay, so we're at the first perch, and there's 8 of us and the guide, 2 guides. And he says, all right, who wants to go first? And I went, I will. Kevin was like, really? And I was like, no, I'm going to go first, and here's why. I'd rather not see someone do it. I'd rather experience myself doing it and see how I feel. And then I'll know how I feel at the next perch. And the guy says, if you get to the next perch, you can't come back. Because now you've got to go the other 9 perches. I'm like, 9? No one told me this was 9 zip lines. I thought it was a zip line. A zip line. They didn't say zip lines. So I still said I'm going to go first. So I get on it, and I did it. And I get to the other side, and I'm like, awesome. That was so awesome. And as I'm on over the other side, then all these people are coming over, and I would say I did it the best. I do have that balletic training, and my legs were in perfect position, turned out, and I landed right there. I got up. It was like, whew. And the guy was like, well, you're a natural. I went, I know. So we finished the first zip line, and then we go through like the next 1 or the next 2. And now, something they didn't tell me was that now we were going to walk across a bridge, a rickety bridge, like something out of the Harrison Ford movies. Yeah. Raider of the Lost Ark. Yeah. And we're going over this huge hole in the ground called the rainforest. And all these guys are like so awesomely excited. They're like jumping on it. And I'm like, oh, I can't be that person that says, please don't move. Please, everybody, just go carefully across this bridge. And I was like, I'm not going to be that person for the rest of the week on this ship, even though it was Thursday and it wasn't that long. So I just kept walking, and I'm literally, and now here's the deal. My hands are sweaty, and you're trying to hold. And then I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I can't fall. I'm attached to something. And in the middle of that bridge, I have this science of mind epiphany, and I'm like, I can never fall. I'm attached to something. I am one with something. I am God. How could I? Meanwhile, I'm standing still now, but it was like this. And they're jumping, and the guy turns to me, and I have this I'm like, I am God in the rainforest of Africa, zip-lining. And he turns to me and says, do you want to try hanging over the side? I went, no. God suddenly disappeared. James was back. Literally. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like a schizophrenic experience. It's like, I am God. No, I'm not. I am God. No, I'm not. And then I went, another epiphany. That's what life is like, isn't it? I am God. No, I'm not. I am God. No, I'm not. I was like, I have to be okay with this. So we get over the bridge, and there's like maybe 4 left. And then he says, now we are about to go over. And every time I go across, I was first, then I was last. I was first, then I was last. I was like, that's very spiritual too somehow. First, last, first, last, first, last. So now it's like we're about to go over. This is the biggest valley, the biggest hole. It's the furthest down. I happen to be first on this one. And it's called, oh God, what was it called? It was called the Glory Hole. And I decided, seriously, that's really what it was called. And I know why you're all laughing, and I'm not going there. So it was called the Glory Hole. And I said to him, I know why it's called the Glory Hole. And everybody in my group was like, why? And I was like, because if you fall into the hole, you go to your glory. And they all thought that was funny. So I went across it. Now, as I went across, all of a sudden, as I jumped into the Glory Hole, I started singing Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah. I was like, I'm going to make this a musicale adventure. So I jumped, and I'm like, zip-a-dee-doo-dah, zip-a-dee-day, my, oh my, what a what. And I sing all the way to the other side. And the guy that was on the other side, he said, no one's ever done that. I said, I am an original. So we get there, and we get to the end of this whole 9 zip lines. And I'm looking around, I'm going, how do you get down? He says, this is like the bungee part of it. I was like, you are kidding me. I just had epiphany after epiphany after epiphany, and now I'm hitting a wall. The bungee part of this. And he said, it's really easy. You just grab hold and just zip down. You just drop down, and it's all weighted. I said, well, what happens if the weights break? He goes, you'll plummet to your death. I said, okay. So then I did the bungee, and I went down, and I was the first one down. And it was just this most amazing experience. And what I'm here to tell you today is this. False evidence appearing real. Fear. Jonathan asked you, and I thought, oh, he's going to do what I'm about to do. But he didn't. He stopped. How much fear is in your life based on evidence, real evidence, that you've really bought into? How much fear do we walk around with in our lives? Fear of dying, fear of flying, fear of relationships, fear of sickness, fear of financial instability, fear of losing something, fear. How much fear is going on in our world that we can logically point to and say, there's that, I can be fearful. Look at this. Like ziplining. I can look at that valley and say, I am afraid of falling to my death in this. And yet, I want to read you a quote, something I wrote in my journal that night. I said, all fear vanishes in the face of remembering who you are. Every moment when I said, I am God in the middle of this rainforest, and then the next second, oh my God, I'm not. That's me not remembering who I am. That's me still thinking I'm just this human body that even if it did plummet to its death, would lose something. What would I lose? That moment? No, I'd probably be very present right through to the splat. And then I believe I would just be, whoa, like I did the last time 2 weeks ago when I was like, wow, that was really cool. I bet people are going to be upset about that, but I'm moving on. So how much fear is in your life that really has no business being there? And I would say all of it. How much false evidence is still present in your life? Now, I want to ask you to do something for me. I want you to raise your hand if you have one. I'd like you to tell me something that you absolutely are afraid of. Yes?
Something happening to my children.
Okay, something happening to my children. I have that exact same fear. And anybody in this room with children probably has that same fear. Something happening to my children. You haven't lived till one of them cuts the foot off a rabbit, but that's another story. Give me another one. Something you absolutely fear.
That I won't arrive where I want to arrive.
You won't arrive where you want to arrive? Do you have GPS?
That I won't arrive at the dreams that I've created, that they won't materialize.
Okay. That he won't accomplish what he wants to accomplish, that he won't realize the dreams he wants to realize in his life. Okay, give me one more. Yes?
I fear sometimes that I won't be right.
That you won't be right. I can fix that right now for you. There are times you're going to be wrong. But so I'm going to go backwards then. Let's start with Ryan. He fears that he won't be right. Does anyone else have that fear, that sometimes you're going to make a mistake? Okay, what do we teach? There are no mistakes. None have ever been made, none ever will be made. Whatever seems like a mistake in that moment is the perfect unfolding of your life, no matter what. No matter what. And that's what we teach, divine principle. I know who I am. If I know who I am, how could anything be a mistake? Absolutely not. It can't happen. Can I ever be wrong? I can be wrong in the moment because perhaps I think I'm wrong, but if I actually live my life from the truth and the understanding that everything that happens to me happens for my highest and best good, still knowing I'm a choice to make whatever choice I make, and here's the thing about making choices. I may say I'm wrong. If my destination is here, and I don't believe, by the way, that there is a destination, the journey is the journey, but let's just say the destination's here, and I'm going this way, I say I'm making a wrong choice, I might have to do this to get there. But you know what I always say to Kevin when he tells me he doesn't understand how I get around without him? I always say that I may find the long way to get somewhere, but there are places I go to during that journey I would have never found if I went the direct route. Right? So I understand my life is unfolding perfectly, even as I drive around Palm Desert completely lost. So that's a fear that is absolutely unfounded and yet very logical, isn't it? It's very logical. So now what are we talking about? Practical spirituality. This science gives us the power to stand in the middle of a Raiders of a Lost Ark bridge and throw your arms up and say, I am, holding the thing, of course, but saying, I am God. I am God. That's what this science gives us. If we would go there and not just be paralyzed in the middle of a bridge, fearing what could possibly happen to me. Right? As far as not accomplishing, I think we put as Jonathan said, we would get way too serious. I think we put way too much on the idea that we are here to accomplish things. Let me be the first to disabuse you of that. We are not here to accomplish. We are here to enjoy. And you know who teaches us that? Thomas Troward. I just finished teaching his class. Thomas Troward says that one of our biggest problems in life is that we think we're here to do things, and yet our only responsibility is to enjoy life. Enjoy, to be in the enjoyment of life at all times. And we get so discouraged trying to accomplish something, we don't even remember to enjoy the accomplishment. I didn't enjoy much of the early accomplishments I had in life. I didn't have fun doing it. I just wanted to accomplish and be someone, forgetting, not even knowing that I already was someone, and to enjoy that. So when we understand that and we learn that and we know that, it's kind of hard to be disappointed that we're not accomplishing more. Now here's the thing that you also have to do. Be willing to enjoy life enough that you are already accomplished at enjoying life. Right? The thing about the children, it's the hardest one for me, and I'll be honest. Somebody asked me once, they said, well, what would you do if one of your children died? How would you be able to use this science? And after trying to catch my breath at that even concept of that, I said, well, I would like to believe that I'm so steeped in my belief that after I mourned and after I dealt with the grief and after I dealt with the loss, I would be able to step into the truth. And all the while, trust and know that the truth was there underneath the grief and the mourning and the loss. Because in truth, if it's one of my children's time to go, then that's their perfect journey. And what I believe about death and life everlasting has to apply to them too. Because what you're really talking about is you and me. How am I going to deal with it? Not are they okay? They are okay. And religious science teaches me that they are okay. And that they are always okay. And that we are always okay. So, Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah. That was the title of my talk. Why? Because I sang it going across the bridge. And it was really where I got a big aha. Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah, zip-a-dee-day. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of sunshine heading my way. Zip-a-dee-doo-dah. Zip-a-dee-day. Zip-a-dee-a. Thank you. So, plenty of sunshine heading my way. That's a philosophy. That's a belief. Do you have that? Do you, in the face of whatever's going on, understand that there's plenty of sunshine headed your way? When I drove here this morning, Kevin said, do you want to drive in last night? And I said, no, there's something about the desert in the early morning that just takes my breath away. I got in the car and I started to drive, and the mountains were all around me and the sun was out, and it was just this breathtaking day. And the sun was just coming up, so the sky had that purple hue, and it was just remarkable. And so I started singing this, plenty of sunshine heading my way, because it was. And I thought to myself, I have just spent 2 weeks going from bears to giraffes to whales to dancing queens to all sorts of things. Everywhere I turned, there was God, if I was willing to see God. And that's the philosophy that you and I have embraced. That's the philosophy that we are steeped in, living in, standing in. Fear is not the problem. What we make of fear is the problem. And the issue is you are making something out of everything because you are creative, because that's what your mind does. It doesn't know how to do anything other than to make something out of whatever's going on in your mind. So today I want you to really think about the fact that you have the opportunity and you have the choice to make whatever you want out of every fear that you may still have inside of you. So what are you going to make out of it? My fear, my literal fear, and let me tell you, it was primal. I could feel it in my body. As we were climbing up to that first perch, fear was all over me, in me, outside of me. It was everywhere. And I just kept walking. Which to this day, I really don't know why, except I do know why, because my life unfolds perfectly. And I do know now why Kevin badgered me. And badgered me. Because I think something in him knew that I needed to have that experience. I needed to face my fear and see that fear is absolutely nothing but a belief, and not one that I want to hold. So on a final note, behold, the kingdom of God is at hand. We just have to be willing to step in front of the fear, recognize it, honor it, respect it, because what I am not saying here is that whatever's going on in your mind, you should just try to get rid of. What's going on in your mind is going on in your mind right now for a reason. Every fear, every doubt, every anxiety, everything that's going on in your mind right now is there for a reason, a good reason. The reason is good, to move you into a better place, to move you into your unfoldment of good. Everything that's going on. Now you just have to be willing to look at it from that perspective. Get in front of it and take it on the journey. Don't let it take you on the journey. Remember, it's false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. The only truth, the only real thing is what I experienced this morning. As I was walking to my car, this bunny rabbit started hopping and just stopped and looked at me. And I looked at the bunny rabbit and I thought, stay away from my son. And the bunny rabbit's just sitting there staring at me, and I stood there for a moment, and the sun's coming up over the thing, and I thought, you and I are the same thing. And if I can know that about a bunny, I can know that about myself. If I can see God in the sun, I can see God in me. If I can see God in the sunset, I can see God in me. If I can see God in the ocean, if I can see God in the giraffe, in this beautiful, tall creature, if I can see God in the whales as they come up out of the ocean with their tails just flipping, if I can see God in these otters whose only purpose is to lay on their backs and keep their little hands warm, if I can see God in every single creature that moves through this existence with me, if I can see God everywhere, then I have to be able to see God in me. And if I can see God in me, then there is absolutely no reason for me to fear anything. Behold, the kingdom of God is at hand. I just have to be willing to see it, and so do you. And that's what I know we are here to do. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.